All right, thanks for joining us here. We got Adam, Dayraven, Osher, Shield, Decipher, Illuminati confirmed, Copacetic, bunch of other people showing up. I haven't texted yet. I was just looking at the headlines here, and there's 500 million people right now. 500 million people right now in North Carolina who are without power. That's 500 million people. That has got to be the worst power outage in human history. Like, really? 500 million people without power in America? And that is the worst ever in America. Our population is 320 million. So that means there's about 180 million, I'm guessing, tourists in North Carolina. And all of them are without power. So we'll keep those people in mind. My phones are open. 505-510-4226. I'm actually I just got back home. Last night the FBI came over. Well, there's a helicopter above my house, and they shine a spotlight in my bedroom. They kicked the door down. They used a battering ram on the back door, scared the dogs, scared the neighbors. They had guns drawn, flashlights out, dragged me out of my apartment into the street. Six of them held me down. They had drug dogs. They had SWAT. The APD was there, rappelling off the roof, kicking in the side windows. It was it was pretty bad. They had ambulances, fire department, the whole place was just lit. They had the bomb squad, ATF, and anyway, they told me that they had received an anonymous tip from a guy who has an anonymous source that anonymously supplied him information. And that information led them to conclude that I was a dangerous threat to national security and the world itself. And so they came in to arrest me, but I talked to my lawyer and they said, well, um, unless the Flat Earth Collective and the fake CIA agent and the mysterious MG come out and testify unanonymously, reveal who they are and the full context in which these supposed threats were made, they're not going to be able to detain me. So I'm back home and I'm live streaming. Lots of things to talk about. I'm over here in the Infinite Plane Society live stream room, and let's just start from the top here. If you don't know who this is, if you don't recognize this face, that is our mascot, our trademarked mascot, a certain penguin. This is his rogue face. He's got his rogue face on. I didn't know that, but apparently we are rogue. And I learned this from Vice.com. So Vice.com sent a reporter over to the Flat Earth Conference in Canada. I talked about this earlier this week. And during the conference, Rick Hummer met with Vice and then went into the bathroom to change into his redneck costume, where he came out as a stereotype with a fake Kentucky accent, walked face first into a door on purpose with his fake buck teeth in order to tell Vice that the world was flat or that he's a rocket scientist. So, of course, they claimed that this has nothing to do with Mad Mike, so they say. But it is true that he never built a rocket in his life. So how do you call yourself a rocket scientist if you've never built a rocket? Strange, huh? To wear rocket scientist on your sleeve. Anyway, according to Vice.com, they had this conversation with Rick Hummer and company. Roland Reddy and company. And this is a quote from the article. Some rogue flat earthers believe Hummer's creation to be a psyop orchestrated to make the movement look dumb. So we have been called out as rogue flat earthers, and there's Mark Sargent holding the sign the Research Flat Earth billboard that was on the side of Mad Mike's rocket and on our Research Flat Earth billboard campaign. So that's our billboard. They use our terminology like flat smacking, and obviously they appropriated our rocket scientist. So he asked me about it. That's how I knew about it. He said, "Hey, did you read this thing on Vice?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I read it." Because he knows the reporter, they've interviewed him. And I'm like, he's like, "Is this why I wasn't invited to the conference?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." It's not that you weren't invited, it's that you were replaced, which is strange. See, Mark's holding the exact sign that went on the side of Mad Mike's rocket, but why wasn't Mike invited? Maybe they figured it was cheaper to buy a set of hillbilly buck teeth and a mullet wig than to, fly the guy in, but I don't know. But here's where their story breaks down when they said it had nothing to do about Mad Mike. Here's where the story breaks down. They said to Vice that Roland Reddy is Flat Earth's secret weapon to break into the mainstream. It's like, what year do they think this is? We already broke into the mainstream. Mad Mike already broke the internet, trended on Facebook 3 times. Do you think, Roland Reddy, that you're going to trend on Facebook 3 times? I don't think so. Anyway, nice try, nice op. It failed. We all see it fail. Nobody was fooled. Nobody was fooled. We knew this character had existed before. He shows up on all kinds of dumb news broadcasts, shoveling snow, pretending to be this character. It's an old character, but he was never a rocket scientist until we had Mad Mike. And even then, and even now, even his character has not yet ever been in front of a damn rocket. So I'm sorry, you're not a redneck and you're not a rocket scientist. Rednecks ought to be offended. I'll tell you, Mad Mike was offended that, as the most famous flat earther on the plane, that he wasn't invited to the first Flat Earth conference. He was offended. He was offended that he was kind of outgrouped, cast aside, ignored, but even worse, insulted that he was replaced by a caricature. So let's continue. This is see, I've been analyzing lately the other people getting behind the idea of finding out what is, finding the edge. So the person who's obsessed with the North Pole, the de facto leader of the search to find out what's at the North Pole, is a guy who goes by the name Quasi Luminous. Changed his name to Saturn. And, and yeah, here he is. This is the guy that says to go into the North Pole, to escape the world, you have to sign your name in blood and jump into a hole in the center of the plane where there's a giant candy cane or something. Really bizarre stuff. But the guy's got a pretty big following, a lot of followers. And I've been flagging this video for the last 3 days for child abuse. And YouTube leaves it up. I mean, it's just amazing how fast YouTube is to respond to the feelings of one of its anonymous trolls. But then you get some kid here being taught by his father, Quasi Luminous, to recite some weird, bizarre stuff about sex with corpses and being the devil. Listen to this and explain to me why this gets a pass.
You're officially dead and a necrophiliac.
You're officially dead and a necrophiliac.
Yeah, he has his kid chanting that he's officially dead and he's a necrophiliac. Well, a kid shouldn't even hear the word necrophiliac. That in itself is child abuse. I flagged this myself. I've had others do it, and it's still up. Like, what does it take? And then, before you criticize this, or as you criticize this, keep in mind that this is no different than telling kids to eat flesh and drink blood so they can live forever, aka Christianity.
You're officially dead and a necrophiliac.
You're officially dead and a necrophiliac.
Again, this is a weird death cult thing. This is just a spin-off. And the fact that he calls himself Satan just shows you that it's a spin-off of the Christian cult, with its false devils and angels. This whole thing, this whole black and white thing is just there to manipulate you. They don't have answers about what comes after, what comes next, what happens when you die. Let's see, Hot Robot, CNBC has reported that Sophia, the robot who wants to destroy humans, is, quote, hot. Hot Robot wants to destroy humans. Okay, now again, 24K, yeah, where's MGTV to flag this? Yeah, MGTV is busy. Look at this here. He filed an online FBI report trying to get me thrown in jail. Talk about cry bully. Oh, you offended me, so I'm going to run to the authority figures. It's like, hey, MG, they already know who you are. You should have just used your real name. You are the collective. You are the fake CIA agent. We've been in discussions with you about you for quite a long time. And it's kind of funny. You can look through some of his emails that he's trying to do this expose, and he outs himself as the collective. But here he's like, to whom it may concern. Nobody's concerned, MG. I am a YouTube channel owner that has a concern regarding an email sent from this user. The details have been made into a video. Please take a quick look at the link as it has the information to authenticate this claim. This is my last effort to get some attention from the event organizer. Robbie Davison is ignoring this. He has ignored it for months. I don't know if the threat is real, but I have loads of other things for you to look at, and I would be uncomfortable with myself if something were to happen. Please contact me via email, and here's the video. So he's writing to the online submission to the FBI to watch a video that he made that he claims to trace from an anonymous source sent to him, claiming they received from me a threat. So he got an anonymous email about an email to an anonymous party about a threat. It's like, okay, well, I still have the presumption of innocence on my side, but even if, and I kind of hope they do, even if they take this seriously and come talk to me, I would be like, please, I'll meet you at the field office and let's have a talk about maybe getting some people to testify against me. Like every person on the collective's email list, every person referenced by the collective when they death threatened me. For example, don't talk about Rick Hummer. We will put you down. KB and Co. Well, hey, I think KB and Co. and Rick Hummer ought to be investigated along with me. How about it? Let's just all go. You too, MG. You think that this is going to fly? I mean, what a fucking crybaby. Seriously. Pathetic. But we all knew that. Let's get back to important business. Um, so this guy here with the buck teeth is the secret weapon to mainstream flat Earth. I'm sorry, but Mark Sargent was on Russell Brand's show. He was on all the major TV shows. He was on various radio programs, Hustler Magazine, ABC, NBC, all the alternative, all the independent people have commented on it. You're telling me it's not mainstream yet and we still need this guy with the buck teeth to get in front of it? Oh no, we're not done yet mainstreaming it with all the damage we've already done. We got to put a stereotype in front of the whole thing. The redneck rocket scientist, meanwhile ignoring Mad Mike, who has already, in a very public way, launched some very heavy criticisms against the space program, against outer space, against all this stuff. So come on. Give me a break. I mean, look at this. The guy looks like a mental patient, like he just had his head operated on. Like they just put a brain in this thing. Look at that face. Come on. It's like, oh, we're not done. We're not mainstream yet, people. We got to get this guy in front of you. Now that he's wearing a doctor's costume, oh, that's real credibility. And then people are just what? They're going to slap their knees and laugh with us like, oh, look, Rick, you fooled the world. You weren't really a herp derp redneck rocket scientist caricature trying to become a flat earther. You were one all along. And you think the dome is falling. Garbage, garbage, garbage. Now, if you don't know who I'm talking about, this is him. This is him. So in addition to being a totally derped out rocket scientist or whatever, wannabe, I mean,
by the Almighty, and his hand is all over.
yeah, this is where he says that if you don't believe we're in the end days, you haven't spent enough time on your knees.
By the Almighty, and his hand is all over this. Because things are being revealed in the last days.
Oh, amen, my ass.
So if you think I'm crazy for saying that, you obviously haven't read some pages.
No, you're not crazy. You're a demagogue. And it's irresponsible to lie to people like this and play on their fears. You're a terrorist. In fact, if you are saying we're in the end of days, you're making a vague terrorist threat. And I'm tired of terrorists. I don't care if you're using the weather to terrorize people or fake shooters or fake Muslim attackers, or if you're claiming that you have special knowledge that the creator of the universe decided to wait until, I don't know, October of 2018 to clue some people in that the sky's going to fall. Like, this is such an old game, an old ruse, and this guy does not believe this. If he literally believed that we're in the end of days, he wouldn't be dressing up like a clown.
You think I'm crazy for saying that? You obviously haven't read some pages. And you haven't been on your knees asking and going straight to the source, because that's how deep it goes. But at the same time, even though we're all here, some of you may not understand some of this, some of you are just here to...
Yeah, some of us don't understand it. No, I understand it all too well. Let's see, links. I'm just going through the Discord server. Feel free, listen, if you go to the Discord server, drop links and I will discuss them. Like this link dropped by Red Paperclip of Justice. Tupac is still alive and Jewish and gay. There's some good news for you. A little mixed news, but overall good. He's still alive. Now the weather fear porn. Here's FEMA flashing devil signs. Not that that means anything. It may. Hurricane Florence. Now, the thing about weather is we need to start auto-hoaxing the weather. Just because the news says that something's happening doesn't mean that it is. I've been covering this lately. I've been saying it for a while that they're fear-porning the weather and that they introduced fire NATOs. When fire NATOs came out, I said, this is it. If people believe this, they will believe anything. And it just so happens that the exact same week that they released Fire NATOs, the movie Geostorm came out and opens with the scene of Fire NATOs. I'll be right back.
I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. Smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my, let me smoke my, let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my, let me smoke my. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. Smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. 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 I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. Smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my, let me smoke my, let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my, let me smoke my. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. Smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. 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 I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. I be piffin' all day. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. Smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed, smoke weed. Piff, piff, fast, motherfucker. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my weed. Let me smoke my,
Okay, so to continue here, let's start with this. There are 7 reasons why you should join the Infinite Plane Society. Well, there's an infinite number of reasons, but here's the 7 main ones. Receive member newsletters by email, access to private Zoom conferences, be a part of a rapid response anti-media network. So the rapid response anti-media network means we're going to be able to wreck hoaxes real time, shut them down. You'll be free from a religious agenda and the presumption of a dome over your head, or any other type of enclosed system model that you haven't had validated or verified. We're a faith-free zone. You will be taking part in the vanguard of a neo-Gnostic reformation of this mediated surreality as a conscientious objector to the mind war and as a non-violent inactivist. So there's no reason to put us on any DHS threat assessment report or any such list because we aren't interested in your activism, your mobs. You know, as much as I enjoy watching fascists get punched in the face, the more I look at it, both sides look like fascists. So I'm not taking part on any level. I'm not even entertained by it at this point. Hardly even care. I try to care about the blue pill Tide Pod politics, and it looks like theater to me. It's theater to distract you from what's really going on. As a member, you will also have republishing rights for Infinite Plane Society podcasts, videos, and blogs. So you could download this and re-upload it on your channel or whatever. You could have it transcribed. You could do whatever you want with any of the content here because we're trying to spread this information if you're a member. If not, of course, you'll be subject to copyright, so you better don't. And then finally, you'll have unrestricted use of our trademarked mascot. Okay, another topic. We were talking about the guy, Quasi-Luminous, telling his kid to talk about necrophilia and the devil or some weird shit. And to me, that should discredit him as a source for information. But here's another one I find kind of interesting. And I guess I should just play the whole thing. Well, no, I'm not going to play it. I have a video here, Should Race Matter on Flat Earth? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just highlight the points that I was raising with this video. So in the video, it's just a conversation that Powerland is having with his viewers regarding blood type. And he had called me on the phone, and the first thing he said was, do you have Rh negative blood? Can you get a test and find out? And he said that the conference was going to be used to get all the Rh negative people in one place so they could be databased and that their phones are connected to it or something about that being tracked. You know, a bunch of stuff. I just ignored it. I didn't really think too much about Rh negative, but I hear more and more talk about it. And the way he's talking, it almost comes off as some type of bizarre dog whistle. So I look into it because he was saying that people who have Rh positive blood are positive for monkey, positive for beast, that this world is Cain, and that they have exited Eden into Cain's world where people have monkey blood and they have a monkey mentality, the bunch of beasts. And during this conversation, he was making some points that I think need to be addressed. So I look it up, you know, rhesus factor. You know, are there people that have something from, you know, are there people who have traits, DNA traits from the rhesus monkey? And it turns out that no, this rhesus factor was not identical to the rhesus monkey factor. But the term rhesus group is still used worldwide. It's still in common usage. So it's a misnomer. The term rhesus factor is a misnomer. It's not literal. But he goes on to preach about this being a literal thing. And so I did a little bit of research on the topic because, you know, factually there are something like 15% of Northern Europeans are this, whereas 1% of other races are not. So there are some things, but you have to remember that causation is not correlation. And if you make the error of conflating the two, you end up walking right into pseudoscientific explanations for things. So there is a pseudo-scientific racist belief that people with Rh negative blood are superior. And this leads many of them to assert that Rh negatives have higher IQs as a result. And that the other results of this mutation would be fair skin and other Caucasian traits. So this is not an uncommon belief. But here's where I thought it got a little dog whistly, is he said that we'll talk about this in detail when my Rh positive friends aren't around. And he's like, and I have a lot of Rh positive friends. So you have a lot of Rh positive friends, and you'll talk about your Rh negative qualities when they're not around. And, that's offensive, or it should be. But then, interestingly enough, he said, oh, yeah, quote, they won't remember it anyway. So the Rh positive people who heard him say that missed it. It went over their heads. He also talked about the Cain thing. And the idea of Cain, it's throughout the Bible, people are very careful not to speak about what it means specifically. But the blood of Cain is just the idea that, and the church used to actually preach this openly till Vatican II, that the Jews are collectively the body of Satan, and that the Christians are the body of Christ. And even the Mormons had this concept. It's very racially coded. Very racially coded, where people with fairer skin defended Christ in the war of heaven when he fell, whereas those who didn't participate were blackened. And so the curse of Cain, the curse of the sin blood, is you're dark skinned. And so Mormonism used to be openly racist, and I think they kind of put that underground, but it wasn't until the late 70s that they actually allowed a black preacher. The Masonic Mormon church is racist. Imagine that. Now, the Mormon church is just Masonic Christianity. That's all it is. I wasn't a Mormon, but I attended services. I knew Mormons. I spent time around it. I looked into it. I tried to read the damn book that was supposedly transcribed. I mean, the stories are ridiculous. You got a known charlatan, a treasure hunter, who supposedly followed a couple of frogs into the woods, and they turned into an angel named Moroni, who pointed to the ground and said, dig. So he digs and he finds a bunch of gold sheets, which he can't show anybody, and he translates them into the Book of Mormon. Meanwhile, the guy is an open practitioner of planetary magic. He has a sigil of Jupiter in his pocket when he's finally caught for some kind of incident. But my point is, he was a Scottish Rite Freemason, and the teachings in the inner temple that the elders are into, the elders in the Mormon church, it's all Masonic. They even wear the Mason symbols on their underwear. They do the Masonic handshakes. They swear the Masonic oath. It's all the same stuff. So Christianity and Masonry combined gets you Mormonism. And like Mormonism, Masonry also is racially segregated. I mean, Mormons affix themselves because they're more public. But go ask the Masons why they have racially segregated lodges in 2018. Of all the things to criticize these organizations for, you could nail them on the PC thing. It's not politically correct to racially segregate. Okay, so let's go on. Oh yeah, speaking of racial segregation. Okay, so we're talking about the racist doctrines of the Mormon cult, Curse of Cain, and it's not like they just changed all of a sudden. They just disguised the stuff that they still believe it on the inside, but check this out. So, if you're not blonde-haired, fair-skinned, Rh negative confirmed, go back to the globe. You might as well. He even specified in one of his live streams that I listened to that it's not enough to be white, because if you have dark eyes, you could be a Jew masquerading as white. So we're getting very specific here. And it's like, dude, if you want to sell millions of t-shirts, you can't be so exclusive. Have a bigger tent. But anyway, is this any different than what Eric Dubai teaches when he uploads videos like Europe for Europeans, this idea of ethno-nationalism? Well, let's take ethno-nationalism at face value for what it really is and just see if it's a good idea. Europe for Europeans, Africa for Africans, Asia for Asians. Everybody goes where they belong. But I think the Americans get to stay here for some weird reason. The people who are for this never go. I spent hours talking to this Nazi here living in Ohio, always belly aching about how the Jews control everything. And it's like, well, then go back to Europe. Defend your homeland. They never do. Eric Dubé lives in Thailand. He's not in Europe making white babies. So who are they to talk? But my point is, the idea of ethno-nationalism, of tying your genetics and your DNA to the soil, is very serf. It's like, oh, you must live in the place where you were born, you will work there, and you will die there. Isn't that by nature? Isn't that specifically actually what serfdom was? Just on a national level? And so if you're going to support serfdom on a national level, that you all just stay in your own little enclaves, then how about this? Earth pond for earthlings, right? If that's your thinking, well, then maybe nobody should talk about exploring anywhere. If your thinking is that everybody has to stay in their own little things, their own little cages, what you're saying is go back to your countries of origin, back into the zoo, human animals. And of course, this type of social planning requires the heavy hand of state and government. The free market doesn't produce these results. The free market produces diversity, not uniformity. So it just tells you where these people are coming from. Now here's something. This is an article a little while ago. I was looking into Limbaugh because Limbaugh is as red pill as you can get for a blue pillar. His analysis is cutting edge, and to be honest, I learned the fine art of media criticism, deconstruction from him. Even though he's completely partisan, and he claims he's not. But he made an interesting comment about David Hogg I wanted to share with you. He said, David Hogg's fame is fading and he can't stand it, and neither can CNN, who created the monster. And now they're backing his plan to skip college so he can focus on the midterm elections. We predicted it, that he was being mainstreamed, that he's just Dan Rather for the youth. One other thing interesting coming up is a Question Everything Conference 2019. And I looked into it, and as I expected, the Question Everything 2019, I'm just bringing this up just to show you how compromised the so-called truth movement really is, how government controlled it really is, and how it's all about mind controlling the stray sheep. They're trying to get you to just accept an alternative version of the mainstream mind control so you don't go anywhere, right? Look at the speakers. Question Everything 2019. Okay, so our vaccines, 9/11, spiritual warfare. Biblical literalists, people who believe in fire and brimstone, that we're in the end times. See, to me, these aren't questioners. These are believers. These are people who are believing orthodoxies that they probably don't allow you to question. This individual here, for example, he says, oh, all of them. I'm not even going to go through them individually. There are a couple here that stood out, but basically they're all the same. They're looking at the world through the lens of biblical literalism, where there's a literal Satan. Satan in science versus God in the Bible. It's false dichotomy, false choices. Stooges and wolves in shepherd's clothing. That's what I see. Okay, here's something else that we have going on here. A few months ago, I put out a decoy book trailer where I pretended to be a journalist debunking flat earth from within or whatever. And I did that because I knew my stalkers would be all over it and they would try to wreck it. So I kind of put the decoy out there. And as expected, my stalkers spread it around, and then the people who can't think for themselves believed it without even asking me first. They said, is this all true? And they just ran with that. So I kind of left it out there so they could just expose themselves as having zero discernment. But the actual book is a work of fiction, and it's not published yet. It's called The Flat Earther's Life on the Edge of Reality. And I put my favorite flat earth model on the cover, which is the disk in space. And so what I'm doing here is I'm selling the publishing rights to the book. 170 pages, 3 formats, paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And so what you get is royalties for the rest of your life. And it has built-in marketing. I'm marketing the book just by my existence. Everything that I do, say, or everything that's shared links to it because it will be advertised on infiniteplainsociety.com. So think about it as you're not just buying the rights to the book and getting into the revenue stream of the royalties, and that's audio and paperback where you get the most money, and of course the ebooks, but you're also getting free advertising on infiniteplainsociety.com, which is where I refer everybody. So I think it's a pretty solid deal. I'm doing it for $500 if you just want the ebook, $15 for the paperback, and $1,000 for the audiobook. And the thing with audiobooks sales is that you get decent bounties if you bring in new customers. But I'm purposefully not releasing it yet. I'm giving it a chance to see if anybody wants it. If you want all three, I knock it down to $2,500. So that's the offer. The Flat Earther's Life on the Edge of Reality. Now I do want to emphasize that it is fiction, and so it's any resemblance to real people in the world are, coincidental, blah blah blah. But it's definitely meant to get people to think. I'll just leave it at that. So if you're interested, go to infiniteplainsociety.com where it has the contact information. Okay, so earlier we were talking about how right now in North Carolina, 500 million people are without power, which is a lot of people. 500 million is, I think it's almost twice the population of America. So there's a lot of people right there right now, and they all got stuck in the inclement weather. So but this is not the first time. I've been actually looking deeply into this, and I'm thinking, is it time to start auto-hoaxing the weather itself? Like, should we now start critically analyzing the daily weather reports? If they're going to inflate the crime statistics like they do, they have been proven to do. For example, with NPR uncovering 235 school shootings that were reported, uncovering that it was nothing more than 10 or 15 incidents that were not shootings, and that none of the 235 actually qualified as mass shootings. So they're inflating the violence. They inflate everything. They fake terrorism. They fake shootings. So why wouldn't they exaggerate the weather? They do anyway. That's what climate change is about. Climate change, climate chaos, that's all about them faking the weather with scary pictures from space, which is meant to convey to you the wrath of globe. That's God's eyes view. God looking down, he doesn't like it. Things are getting hotter. Well, you look here and people are uncovering, like this here, CNN staged a fake rescue. And you know what? Even before I even questioned the media, it was during that earthquake in Haiti. I saw, and I'll play it for you now. I saw Anderson Cooper fake a rescue. Oh yeah, here it is. And the people in the comments section buy into this. It's sad, really. Anderson Cooper rescues injured boy from Haiti. So what happens is he's walking down the street and his cameraman is shaking the camera to give you the impression that the earthquake's still happening. And then this kid walks around the corner with fake blood all over his head and shirt. And he walks right up to Anderson, who puts down his mic and picks up the kid and runs around the corner to where there's an ambulance with the door already open, ready to take the kid. Watch this.
Takes away something, others will try to grab it. It's basically a battle between to see who's stronger.
You can just see a chunk of concrete or rock thrown by one of the looters from the roof. A young boy is hit in the head. That's him there on the ground, captured on my DV camera. If he stays there, he might get killed. I pick him up. I carry him to the barricade. Blood is pouring from his head. He's clearly stunned and can't walk. They hand him over the barricade. He's carried away. In the end, the store is emptied. The looters move on just down the street.
Anyway, fake. I've analyzed it. That one was pretty obviously staged. He put him down and the kid was just fine. I think they put too much makeup on. Pretty bad. I mean, it didn't look realistic the first time I saw it. And even then, see, at that time I didn't know that they were actually like faking stuff. But that they throw out, like, they'll mix in real with fake. They're so opportunistic, like scavengers. Nothing the media likes more than a tragedy to exploit. And if they're not getting the right kind of tragedies, they will manufacture them. But I call them bloodthirsty for a reason. I mean, that's what they want. But anyway, I mean, this here. This is just an example of them being caught staging a rescue. We have one the other day, it's quite comical, where you actually see the reporter walking against the wind, but people in the background are walking straight up. So it's like, what's going on here? Well, obviously he's acting like he's in the wind. Not any different from those CNN guys behind the scenes who were joking around, pretending like they just got hit by a Scud missile. This fake news thing is not a new thing, but the thing I find worth looking at closely now is fake weather. Okay, here's something. Jerry Brown. This is from Politico. Jerry Brown wants a climate change satellite. He wants to launch his own satellite to figure out where the pollution is and how they're going to end it, he said to a San Francisco gathering. California will work with the San Francisco-based Planet Labs to launch a satellite capable of tracking climate-altering emissions. You see, this is pseudoscience. They haven't even proven that there are climate-altering emissions and that if climate change does exist, they still haven't made the connection between it and us. They want to blame you for the wrath of globe, which doesn't exist. The governor's choice of words deliberately echoed his 2016 challenge to Trump when Trump admitted that they would undercut NASA's climate research role. And that's something I'm actually happy about, but it doesn't really matter. Like, Trump can eviscerate the EPA, but if he just hands the money over and the resources over to Space Force, well, then he didn't do us any favors, because you can't separate fake climate change from the fake space program. That's another giveaway here. Okay, so earlier we were talking about the RH negative, RH positive thing, right? Here's another question for you. If you think that it's a real thing, that RH negative people are actually lack this specific monkey DNA or whatever, which already we know to be a misnomer, but if you actually believe that, then don't you also have to believe in evolution? If you accept this idea that some people evolved with monkey DNA that you don't have, and that's why you're better than them, well, then you also believe in evolution. And if you believe in evolution, whose version? Darwin? Whose timelines? The one that starts with dinosaurs back when, with meteors and asteroids from outer space, with their timeline of the natural selection process? Because if you buy into that, you just accepted like a huge chunk of the Jesuit doctrine starting with the Big Bang. You just bought into outer space. I mean, it's so contradictory. And by the same token, if you believe in climate change, then you might as well say you believe in the globe, because it all presupposes a globe model and information coming from orbiting satellites. Not high altitude balloons, and they're just giving you wrong interpretations. No, your information is supposedly coming from outer space. So you have to accept it. So if you believe in climate change and you think the earth is flat, well then explain that contradiction there. And one of the things I think we should do is just start eliminating contradictions. So if somebody says they believe in climate change and evolution, then they're dumb or they're operatives. Like the Flat Earth Society believes in evolution. The Flat Earth Society believes in climate change. Ask around, see who still buys into dinosaurs, which is an easy to disprove hoax, because either they're being reckless, intellectually dishonest, or deceitful. Because it's reckless to just haphazardly choose when not to believe. That's why the Infinite Plane Society has ruled out any religious faith or any holy book as a source. And the Bible literalists out there are promulgating wrath of God as though it's any different than wrath of globe. And I'm saying that if you're promoting wrath of God and judgment, well then you're just promoting the same eschatology that these climate scientists are. You're just doing the same thing NASA is. NASA, with their organization called NOAA, not a coincidence, is out there telling us that your carbon emissions, i.e. your pollution, your sin, your carbon footprint, your effects on the environment will bring about climate catastrophe like fire tornadoes. That's no different than preaching tribulations, 7 years of torment and torture before the righteous get their superhero bodies and come down and kick ass. Like, it's all crap. All the doomsayers are liars. They're just lying on the future so they don't get called out on it. And what's worse, if you are a doomsayer, you are by all definition a terrorist. You're a terrorist because the climate scientists who are warning about the future in ways that they can't possibly predict, they're doing so to coerce you, your votes, to coerce you into voting more government solutions, giving the government more power to regulate. So you're being coerced to vote in a certain way. So it's political. This whole weather thing is just political. It's all there to coerce you to vote for more statism. And that type of coercion is called terrorism, even if it's part of a protracted, long-term mind war operation like climate change, or a protracted, long-term mind control operation like biblical end times prophecy. It's the same crap, and the same people made it up. They're called Jesuits. It's called Jesuit futurism. And it doesn't matter if you think you're not part of Rome. It doesn't matter if you don't openly worship the Pope. If you're preaching end times prophecy, you're a damn Jesuit. You might as well worship the Pope. You might as well go kiss his ring. You might as well go worship a rocket, because that's just the newest iteration of the Pope's obelisk. Let's see here. This is Governor Brown. He's saying, in California, with science under attack, we're under attack from a lot of people like Donald Trump, but the climate threat keeps growing. So is it wrong for Governor Brown to threaten people with the climate? Is it wrong for a doomsayer preacher to threaten people with God's judgment? I would say so. And look at his choice of words. We want to know what the hell is going on over the world, This is crazy. It's crazy that this demagoguery gets a pass because the scientists back it up. But that's what it is. It's demagoguery. It's playing upon your fears. It's using guilt and shame. NASA launches laser device into space to measure the Earth's polar ice. And here's another thing about this whole NASA space program and climate change thing, is that if you're not talking about both, you're not being thorough enough. Like, this is supposed, like a lot of these people who talk about the subject, they say, oh, this is, we're truthers. We're trying to shine a light on certain facts to get people to come closer to reality, to get past the deceptions. Well, if you're only half-assing it, you're not doing any good. It's not enough to say the world might be stationary if you're not also calling out the fake media top to bottom at every level for what it really is, the state church. If you don't recognize that, then are you really even qualified to move this conversation further, or are you an obfuscator? I happen to think that debating itself is a mere stalling tactic, If you want to debate to me the color of the sky, I would say there's no debate necessary. And if I were to debate it, it would be an insult to those of us who can see clearly what it is. Like, I don't think we need to give every bad idea equal airtime. And I think the dome is auto discrediting. There is no dome. That shouldn't even be a consideration. The only thing that we can say definitively is that we do not perceive the model as they describe it to be. So if you're just dispensing with their augmentations, we have to go off of what we can perceive, what we can know. If you're trying to assert something else instead of it, like a rectangular looping Earth or a dome or anything else, you're just replacing one program with another. It's also why I think that the media as an institution needs to go. It's proven itself to be incapable of handling the job of keeping people informed, and it just allows a lot of influence to authorities to covertly shape the perceptions of people who don't think for themselves. And to me, this is about thinking for ourselves, perceiving for ourselves, and it's not about adopting a new belief system. And one of the ways that this whole idea is being, I wouldn't say tarnished, but it's being branded negatively in a way that it's meant to be off-putting. But, I mean, I don't care. Off-putting to who? The state-controlled media? But one of the ways they're trying to dissuade people from looking into it is they're trying to paint it up as a bunch of religious fruitcakes who think the sky is falling. And sadly, those types of beliefs are very common and prevalent. And those of us who speak out against them are branded as devils, and we're bullied, and they try to push us away. They try to marginalize those of us who recognize that religious agendas are being surreptitiously inserted into the conversation, probably as an act of sabotage, to be quite honest. And so, just as Dubé's fixation on Hitler and all these blue pill constructs is sort of a something to muddy up the waters. It's like, now you talk about flat earthers. Remember Joe Rogan, the first time he said, oh, flat earthers, those guys. Once you go down that rabbit trail enough, you end up a Nazi. Remember that was a thing? So that was to me, that was a deliberate attempt at sabotage. They tried the Nazi thing, it didn't work. They have a pretty, I think, surefire way to destroy this thing if they keep it biblical, because that'll keep it small and off-putting and easy to discredit and anti-scientific. But then even the people who aren't overtly religious still get in front of it and say that they're anti-science or that they're at war with science. It's like, no. The Jesuits have been at war with science forever. That's why we had a dark age. They co-opted the scientific methodology from the get-go, and we haven't even rediscovered it without this corruption until just recently. We haven't had uncorrupted media until just recently. And even now, alternative media is grassroots, independent media still bounces off alternative and mainstream, which makes it codependent and completely disconnected from reality. The only people who are free of this deception are the ones who recognize the media for what it is and have gone post-media. Like, we're not just choosing another denomination. And so I'm just looking at where this idea is going, and I don't see any credible organization moving it forward that doesn't have something in it that will sink it from within, some internal divider. Like, we have to be united against the dividers, and if you're still pitting Christians against Jews, you're a divider. So that includes Dubé. If you're pitting RH negative versus RH positive, well, then you're a divider, because race is also a religion, and if this is a racial purity test, well, then you're not really aiming to move this idea forward anyway. It's run into the ground at that point if you make it about race. Lord Stephen Christ, I had a lot of faith in him, but he got himself thrown in jail again. So he's not going to move this idea forward. Quasi-Luminous is too busy brainwashing his kid to worship the devil and talk about necrophilia. So, where is this idea going? We know that there are some people out there who are organizing on the basis of experiments with lasers and stuff, but we all know that you're not going to disprove the model from within the model, and that you're not going to have much credibility anyway in the eyes of people if you are a biblical literalist who also believes in the scientific method. It's like, nope, it's a contradiction. It's very it's very interesting though to watch people try to use the scientific method when it suits them, but then revert to belief when it doesn't, because that's what got you the globe. When you have a God of the gaps explanation for things that science can't explain, that we don't have enough information for. And so the Infinite Plane Society is just a group of us who recognize we don't have enough information to come to a complete explanation. And all those out there complaining they do, or claiming to have all the answers, are liars and charlatans. All of them. Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who can tell you about the TRAPPIST star system in a Goldilocks zone 36 trillion miles away or whatever, is like, he's got all the answers. He can tell you where we're going, where we're headed. Before he died, quote unquote, Stephen Hawking said that we had 100 years left before the planet would be annihilated. And even if we escape, the aliens will get us. And if we avoid the aliens, and we do escape, and we become a successful multiplanetary civilization, well, then the universe is going to implode. So they all have like this complete certainty about everything. Some of them claim to know that we're in the end of days. It's like Stephen Hawking doesn't know we're in the end of days any more than Al Gore. So if you're telling me that we're in the end of days, on what authority? Where's your information? How are you not just a doomsaying charlatan, and why should anybody listen to any more doomsayers or charlatans? So the reason why we had to form the Infinite Plane Society as an organization is because the detractors of what we're about, which is more information, exploration, the reason why we got behind exploring again in whatever avenues there are, is because we need more information. We're not satisfied with what your Bible says, or what this guy claims that the Bible says if you look at it in this interpretation. And also, I think it's a mistake to put any type of leader in front of this thing, because we know how easy people can be co-opted, compromised, or taken out of context and wrecked. I mean, that's what they do. That's what the character attacks are about. That's why, as we speak, my good friend, Mr. Goldfinch, is trying to sick the FBI on me. They think that if they can get me thrown in jail, that this thing will stop. And it's like, it's too late. The Infinite Plane Society is an organization now. I'm just the PR guy. I used to be the president, but I stepped down. I'm actually going to be appointing a board of direct. We have a board of directors, but we're going to appoint some public positions. I just want to see who's actually willing to put their email address out there and their phone number. But the organization itself will go on, and the organization doesn't have any beliefs. So it's really, we're organized on our non-belief. We're probably the first organization ever organized on a refusal to believe. Because what happens is, usually, things just split into denominations. Oh, they don't like the mainstream, so they go with another interpretation. But the truth is, it seems to me that all the factions are still under centralized control. All roads really do lead to Rome. And I'm just seeing a whole lot of Jesuit stalling tactics, whether it be debate or false choices. And so really what we are against isn't NASA or science. It's against the mediator class. That's what it would be, the mediators in media. Not just news media, but government, academia, the celebrity class, all the brainwashers out there that reinforce the big lies. All we're trying to do is contradict them. Just criticize what they're saying and question it. Nothing wrong with that, especially when we see examples of them faking and exaggerating the weather, from big lies like climate change to some reporter like literally leaning forward like he's walking into a hurricane, and then people behind him are just moseying along. It's like they're actors and they're fabricating reality, and we're calling it out as fake. But what I'm seeing here is that people are putting consensus and community ahead of truth and the desire for more answers. They would rather fit in and be politically correct with this group than find out what is. It's like somewhere along the way they ceased to be seekers and they became believers. And so if you're a seeker and not a believer, I recommend that you disassociate from the Flat Earth Society and the controlled Flat Earth rollout psyop that you see on YouTube. You don't need to be led by any actors or cops or any shady characters like that. Just be led by your own knowledge, your own curiosity, and your own desire to know where we're going with this thing. Too many of these shepherds are trying to steer you, and it's like, screw that. So anyway, go to infiniteplainsociety.com and join just by email. Get on the list. Once we have 5,000, we're going to go public with a press release and make a statement regarding our position versus that of the Flat Earth Society, and really as Flat Earth has been represented, all the representation it's had so far. Because it's really not about Flat Earth anyway. I think it's about challenging the Wizards of Oz. Really calling them out. Hey, look, they perpetrated so many frauds like in the last year. Look how many frauds they've passed off in the last year with like Starman and Parkland and Waffle hoax and van hoaxes and now the weather hoaxes and fire NATOs. It's ridiculous. And the problem with it is, you know, you can laugh it off day by day, but it accumulates. And like those fake statistics at NPR that counted 240 shootings that weren't, or these fake weather reports, it adds up and it becomes a part of history. So if you think about history and how much you can trust it, you know how it's written, you know who writes it. Well, history is nothing more than an accumulation of mainstream interpretations of events. And you know who controls the mainstream. I'm going to take a quick break. I might take calls. Give me just a second.
Let us impregnate the sky with